All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, which is to say in the Paleo Hebrew, Yahweh, which is the name of our Heavenly Father, meaning He is, and that is who the world ignorantly calls God, Bahashem, meaning in the name, Yahweh Shai, meaning He is our salvation. And that is who the world also ignorantly calls Jesus, a so-called black man, who, by the way, only came for the Israelites. Which brings us to our discussion / topic this afternoon is what? Referring to the video that I did yesterday and this comment regarding to Daniel 9:27. Now let's read this comment left by at his servant in Christ Jesus. It goes on to read, he doesn't expect us to be fluent in Hebrew. He divided us for a reason. See, and I can only assume that he's saying he doesn't expect us to be fluent in Hebrew because of the opening that I give all praises to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. All right? Which is well worth it, okay? To what? Exalt the names, all right? To let you know that you've been what? Tricked, or to be what? Deceived into believing that who you call God is the Heavenly Father and who you call Jesus is the Savior, all right? Those names are ambiguous, okay? You can put God to any other entity, but when you put a name, then you what? Then you put a image behind it, okay? You put the power behind the name, okay? Which is why we call on Yahweh and we don't call on God. And when you put a name to, when you put, I don't want to say a face to a name, but when you put, I said an image earlier, but when you put a doctrine to that name, then what? You separate it. So we put Yahweh Shai, which taught the law, statute, commandments, and everything else. We separate what? You calling Jesus from Yahweh Shai, all right? Because Jesus teach two totally separate things from what Yahweh Shai teaches, okay? I said two, but I meant to say Jesus teaches a whole separate doctrine than what Yahweh Shai teaches, which is why this individual right here is confused in the sense that Daniel 9:27 has already been fulfilled, all right? And Yahweh Shai spoke of that in Matthew the 24th chapter, all right? So it says, oh, the horror of it all. God, we don't know what God you're talking about. You could be talking about any God. See, this is why we specify who we're speaking of, and we call on his name, which is who? Yahweh. All right, we know the ancient Hebrew didn't have e's in it, okay? So it can't be what they would call Yahweh, okay? So it says, let's see, it reads more. It says, God gave you a strong delusion. Goats on the left see ya. And he's referring to a passage in Matthew, the 25th chapter, the 33rd verse, all right? Little do he know, he's been deceived, all right? And he's going to be what? Put on the left, the goats, which is going to be what? That sacrifice, all right? Especially if he's here in America, all right? We go over this time and time, all right? You here in America and you outside of the elect, you will be destroyed, all right? Whether you are Israelite or whether you are a heathen, all right? If you're not of the elect here in America, you will be destroyed, all right? And more than likely, this is an individual that is here in America. Let's go to his page or whoever page this is and see. It has his servant, which looks like to have a image of a old-time Edomite pastor as his avatar. So we have to see. This could be an Edomite or a heathen, or it could be a Jake who hasn't woken up or who hasn't accepted the fact that he's an Israelite. All right. Let's check out this channel. Some of the videos goes into what? A rapture, September 23rd through the 24th, 2025, which is the one I did a video on yesterday that this person seems to have had an issue with, because why? More than likely, they subscribe or adhere to the doctrine of dispensationalism. And we're going to look into that a little bit. It goes on to the next video, prophecy of the 24 elders, names revealed. The rapture of the, I guess it would say bridegroom. Rapture or rejects. The measure and testing ground of the field. So this person seems to be recently heavily into that rapture doctrine, which I went into showing you that it's a false doctrine in the way that these so-called Christians teach it. And that what? They break down Daniel, the 9th chapter, the 27th verse, as a futuristic prophecy that hasn't been fulfilled, that will be fulfilled amongst the Antichrist being revealed. All right? Which is solely going off, which is totally going off. Okay? The only red heifer is Jesus. Revelation 1 and 4. Revelation 4 and 5. Restored tabernacle of David. The 24 elders. So you go on to see that this individual is heavily rooted in Christianity, which is a strong delusion. Speaking of strong delusions, you're under a strong delusion. Christianity. Okay? Daniel's 70 weeks correct interpretation of Daniel 9 from original.
Unlocking Daniel 9:24-27. Are you ready to dive deep into one of the most debated prophecies in the Bible? Let's explore Daniel 9:24-27 with freshly anointed eyes, focusing on a correct Hebrew translation. The correct interpretation. 70 weeks, jubilees, decreed over your people and on your holy city, Jerusalem, to restrain transgressions. Satan will be bound for the millennial reign, to sign and to seal up sins of sin and to atone the iniquity and to bring justice forever and to seal the vision and of the prophet, Daniel, and to anoint the Holy of Holies, Jesus Christ, King of the millennial reign and forever. And knowing you will learn from the word that proceeds forth. Jesus is the word that became flesh, John 1:14, and Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, Revelation 19:10. To return and build Jerusalem up till Messiah becomes ruler is, firstly, 7 weeks, number of Jubilees.
So he has an AI voiceover, so you can't really see exactly who he is, but Satan is loose, man. This is where prophecy comes into play, man. Satan is loose for a little season. He's already loose, man. What does it say? The son of perdition. All right. He's loose as who? The Edomites. All right. Their deadly wound was healed. But see, this is why understanding prophecy goes a long way in breaking down chapters like Daniel, the 9th chapter, the 27th verse. Because here it is. You still think Satan is bound. Satan's been loose for that little season. Okay? You have to understand, when Yahushua, or who you call Jesus, comes back, there would be a ruling power in play, known as the wicked. All right? Job 9:24 gave us an insight to who that was. It says, he covered the faces of the judges thereof. Just look at the people who we have here on this person's screen. Look at who they call Jesus. That's a real life man known as Caesar or Cesare Borgia. He was the one that posed for the image, if I'm not mistaken, that was painted by Leonardo. All right. So Job 9:24 says, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces thereof. Just do a small research. Every person in the Bible, notable, looks like an Edomite, a so-called white person, showing you that these are the ones in rulership right now that would be in power when Yahushua returns. Okay? You're waiting on an antichrist when the antichrist is, as it says in, I believe, 1 John, the 2nd chapter, the 18th verse, there are many antichrists, all right? But pursuant to Revelation 16 and 15, if I'm not mistaken, the antichrist speaking of collectively is what? The Roman Catholic Church, and offsets of the Roman Catholic Church, which are many antichrists, which deny the physical seed of Yahushua being born of Joseph, of the lineage of David. So now there are many antichrists, all right? But the antichrist in general is speaking of who? The Edomite, all right? Esau, okay? So you can understand in plain terms, the so-called white man, okay? He spearheaded his system through what? It's known as three unclean frogs, or three unclean spirits, all right? You have the Vatican, which is where the Roman Catholic Church sprung out of. Then you have the monetary system, which is London, and then you have the military might, which is DC, all right? That encompass itself as the what? The Antichrist system, but it's spearheaded by who? The Edomites, all right? They did their due diligence in covering up themselves, okay, so that the people wouldn't know who they were, but in these last time prophecies, they would have to be revealed, okay, as what? That lawless man, okay? See, you're waiting on one individual to rise out of the ashes as this antichrist that's going to seal a deal with the modern day state of Israel and then break it in the middle of the week, which you think is speaking of in Daniel, the 9th chapter, the 27th verse, which it isn't. That 1 week has been fulfilled with the Jewish-Roman wars. Getting ahead of myself. From 66 BC, or Salakia, AD, to 73 AD. That 1 week was fulfilled in that what? 7-year war with the Jewish and Roman wars from 66 AD to 73 AD, which 70 AD falls in the middle of that week, which the Roman soldiers desecrated the temple where we, speaking of the Jews at that time in Jerusalem, would sacrifice and make oblations in the temple. The Romans desecrated or ceased to allow the sacrifice and oblation to take place in 70 AD with the destruction of the temple, the second temple. Okay? So just going back into these little videos of him, you can see, all right? And if I had to put a name on it, I would say this person is more than likely an Edomite, okay? Because look at all this, okay? These are all Edomites, all right? So I would have to say this person is more than likely an Edomite who adheres to the practice that those people in Israel are truly the Israelites of the Bible, all right? Little did that person know, those are Edomites over there. Now, am I saying there aren't Israelites among them? No, because we know Israel, or Yasharallah, was scattered through all parts of the earth. So there's going to be a sprinkled population of Israelites among those small hatters, those 1948ers over there. But by and large, those are Edomites, okay? That came into the land once we, the true biblical Israelites, were removed from out of the land. They came in by the way of a Balfour Declaration, 1948. That state of Israel was established, all right? But don't get it twisted. Those aren't the real Israelites. That's why they don't fit any of the prophecies, which is going to be the thing that condemned them, all right, when we go into it, okay? So as we can see, this person believes that dispensationalism, matter of fact, I got it pulled up and I asked the question to AI Overview and I'm going to read it to you. So I said, do dispensationalism believe that an antichrist will break a covenant with the modern day state of Israel? And it goes on to read, the AI Overview says, yes, a central belief in dispensationalism is that the Antichrist will make and then break a 7-year covenant of peace with the modern day state of Israel. Now I can almost bet my last dollar that this person believes that that Antichrist is going to be Trump. Okay? I can almost bet you my last bottom dollar that I got that this person believes that the Antichrist that's going to be revealed is going to be Trump trying to sign a peace treaty with Netanyahu, and he's going to renege, or he may even think that the Antichrist is Benjamin Netanyahu, okay? One who's already in play. All right, this is probably who the person believe it to be, either Trump or Netanyahu. Okay, so back to the AI Overview. It says the Antichrist will make and then break a 7-year covenant of peace with the modern day state of Israel, which are Edomites, which doesn't make sense. It goes on to read, this covenant marks the beginning of the end times period known as the Great Tribulation. You got to understand, this is the understanding of dispensationalism, which is a sect of Christians, if I'm not mistaken, evangelists that believe this. And it spars off, or it breaks off into other sects such as baptism, Pentecost, and non-denominational. Okay? But this is their core belief. It says this belief is derived from dispensationalist interpretations of the 70 weeks prophecy in the Old Testament book of Daniel 9:27, which has already been fulfilled completely in its entirety. Okay? It says the dispensationalism timeline, according to this theological framework, a series of events will occur. Here's the series of events. It says the rapture, the church, consistent of all true Christians, will be raptured, in parentheses, taken up into heaven before the start of the tribulation. See? After the church is gone, evil will escalate on earth. This is their core belief in the rapture doctrine. They believe that before the Great Tribulation, the church, the believers, which that's not who the church is. All right, Acts 7, right around 35 on down to about 38, tells us that the church, the first church, let me just read that while I'm thinking about it, okay? Let me read it. Give me 1 second to go to Acts 7. Because the first church in the wilderness were who? The Israelites. So they trying to use replacement theology, although that goes into supersessionism, but they're adhering to it to a degree as well, that the church are believers and not Israelites only. So let's go to Acts 7 and what did I say? 35? 35. Acts 7 and 35. Read along if you will. This Moses whom they refused, saying, who made thee a ruler and a judge? The same did God, the Most High, send to be a ruler and a deliverer by the hand of the angel which appeared to him in the bush. So this is speaking of the Israelites saying to Moses, whom they refused, saying, who made thee a ruler and a judge? Verse 36, he brought them out after that he had showed wonders and signs in the land of Egypt and in the Red Sea. Right, Moses split the Red Sea. He was used by the Most High to bring plagues on Egypt. He turned the water to blood. He put locusts, frogs, lice. We know what happened in Egypt. It says, a prophet shall the Lord your power raise up unto you of your brethren, like unto me. Him shall you hear. Acts 7:38. This is he that was in the church in the wilderness. See? The church are Israelites. Those are the ones that were in the wilderness, not believers. Okay? It says, let's read it again. Acts 7:38. This is he that was in the church in the wilderness with the angel which spake to him in the Mount Sinai, and with our fathers who received the lively oracles to give unto us. Verse 39. To whom our fathers would not obey, which is why we're in the predicament that we're in right now. We're under the curses, all right, because our forefathers, all right, disobeyed the commandments of Yahweh. It says, but thrust him from them, and in their hearts turn back again into Egypt. The same way our people doing right now. Okay, here it is. We coming out with the truth and telling you these things, but they refuse to accept them, and they turn it back to Egypt, which is represented by what? That dog Jesus, okay? And under that dog Jesus, there's a doctrine known by the evangelists as the dispensationalism doctrine, where the church, those that believe, would be raptured before that week in Daniel, the 9th chapter, the 27th verse, is to be what? Taking place. They're going to be raptured up before the Great Tribulation. All right? Which doesn't hold any weight at all. Okay? Furthermore, everybody is going to take place during Jacob's trouble. That's the Great Tribulation. Okay? Jacob's trouble. All right? Everyone on earth is going to take part of Jacob's trouble. There ain't going to be no rapture. All right? In the sense that these Christians tell you. All right. Now there will be a event that takes place, okay, when the elect gets beamed up, all right, to escape the missiles, the thermonuclear missiles that's coming here to America on overkill, all right. But that's after Jacob's trouble. Jacob's trouble hits, mark of the beast is made mandatory, which is the RFID microchip. And then shortly afterwards, the missiles come to destroy America, pursuant to Revelation 18, Isaiah 34, if I'm not mistaken, and other scriptures as well. And then the elect, they get beamed up or taken into the chambers or the chariots, pursuant to Isaiah 26 and 20, while America gets destroyed. And then afterwards, they come down, okay, which is spoken of in Revelation. John saw New Jerusalem come out of heaven. That's speaking of the elect, okay? They come, from the chariots out of heaven, the so-called UFOs, and then they come to take over the earth, okay? And put these rulers, particularly these elite rulers, starting with the Edomites, first and foremost, into slavery, and then the other rulers as well, and the other people outside of Israel, okay, the true Israelites, all right, and that's how it goes, all right. So this person has a minute understanding of Daniel 9 and 27 because it has already been fulfilled in its entirety completely, okay. In Matthew 24 and 16, Matthew 24 and 16, the prophecy that Yahushua gave completely shows us that, okay? So we're going to go and give me 1 second to pull up this right here, because this goes into Matthew 24:16. And let me see what I put. I said, could Jews have fled into Africa from Jerusalem in Matthew 24, pursuant to the prophecy that Yahushua gave, that when you see Judea surrounded by the abomination, desolation spoken of in Daniel, let him that read this flee to the mountains, okay? And that's where certain Jews fled into the interior of Africa, and they got maps known as Negro Land map, and the Jews had, what's the word I'm looking for? The Jews had communities set up already in Africa, and they were there for a period of time until what? They were sold into slavery, where they came here on this side of the earth, the uttermost part. Here is America, via by the way of the transatlantic slave trade, which is spoken of in Deuteronomy the 28th chapter, the 68th verse. Okay, and we were sold for bondmen, and this is where we at right now. Okay, those so-called Jews over there in the Holy Land aren't the real Jews. All right, they're imposters. Okay, that's why they don't fit any of the prophecies. Okay, that's why this dispensationalism doesn't make sense, because it's predicated on those individuals over there being the real people of the Bible. When you look into it, they don't fit the prophecies, specifically the one written in Isaiah, the 2nd chapter. It says, when the people come to the land, there will be no more war. So if they over there in the land right now, why do they need a peace treaty to be signed with the quote unquote so-called Antichrist? When the Jews come back home, there's not supposed to be any war. So why do you need a peace treaty to be signed? It makes no sense. When you look at it prophetically, you got the so-called, Jays, the 48ers over there that's supposed to be the people of the Bible, of the land, but yet through this theology or ideology, they need a peace treaty. When when the people of the book return back to the land, they will learn no more war. They would turn their plowshares into pruning hooks. If I'm stating it right, we're showing you they're going to revert back to the pruning hooks that were turned into spears. In Joel, the 2nd, or I believe the 3rd chapter, they revert back to pruning hooks or agriculture farming hooks, because war won't need to be learned anymore when they return back to the Holy Land. So if they in the Holy Land right now, by process of elimination, we shouldn't be having any more wars. But we see wars going on, rumors of wars going on. And the fact that an Antichrist has to come to sign a peace treaty to stop that speaks to volume that those aren't the real people of the book. Disassembling that whole dispensationalism, dog crap doctrine, man. Daniel 9:27 has already been fulfilled in its entirety. That 1 week went into the Jewish-Roman wars, 66 AD to 73 AD, okay? With the end of it being Masada, all right? When you had individuals eating their own babies, all right? It was wild out there, man, all right? And guess what? That same tactic that those Roman soldiers used then, that Yahushua warned us about, they're going to use again. as it says in Ecclesiastes 1:9, if I'm not mistaken, there's no new thing under the sun. They getting ready to do that same play again. You see the National Guards getting ready to be sent to these cities and states and towns, primarily where who stays? You so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. They getting ready to starve you out. They getting ready to, a famine is getting ready to take place. And it's finna be on and popping soon, man. Okay? So let's read. I said, could Jews have fled into Africa? The AI overview says yes. Historically and scholarly sources confirm that Jews fled into Africa from Jerusalem during the Roman-Jewish War, which led to the city's destruction in 70 CE, Common Era, secular history, or AD, biblical history, or biblical. This migration aligns with the warnings in Matthew, the 24th chapter, particularly the 15 to 16 verse given by who? None other than Yahushua, who was a prophet, which instruct those in Judea to flee to the mountains during the impending tribulation. Okay? So Daniel, the 9th chapter, the 27th verse has already been fulfilled. All right? In its entirety. Okay? That 1 week, those 7 years have already been completed. All right? The Jewish-Roman War. All right? So let's go to Daniel 9 and let's start at 26. This is Daniel, the 9th chapter and the 26th verse. It reads, and after 62 weeks, so this is the completion of those 69 weeks, all right? Because 7 weeks, and then as it says, 62 weeks are 62 weeks. So the 7 weeks have already taken place, which the decree was given by Artaxerxes. You know, you can read that in Nehemiah, the 2nd chapter, the 1st verse, right around all the way down to the 8th or 9th verse. And also in Ezra, the 4th chapter, the 1st verse. Okay? So the decree was given to restore Jerusalem. Those were the 7 weeks, or the 7 weeks, which equates to 49 years. And then it says, and after 62 weeks, so 62 weeks, when you add 62 plus 7, you get 69, which in years that comes up to, or you go that into days, which is 483 days, which is equated to 483 years. You get the time when Yahushua, who they call Jesus, came into Jerusalem, and what? He was cut off, or he was crucified. It says, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, right? Because he was a sacrifice, or he was crucified for the who? The transgression or the sins of Israel. It says, in the people of the prince. Who is the prince? Well, the general Vespasian, and his son Titus, his elder son Titus, would be the prince. And the people are who? The Roman army. This is who Yahushua is warning about. This is what the 27th verse is going into. It says, in the people of the prince, which is the Roman army of Titus, it says, they shall come. It says, in the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Okay? Where we make the sacrifice and the oblation. It says, in the end thereof shall be with a flood. Right? They came in, as it says, many waters. They came in as a flood. All right? And guess what? They're going to come in as a flood again this time. All right? But see, this time when they come in as a flood, as it says in Isaiah, the 59th chapter, the 19th verse, the Lord is going to lift up a standard. Okay? It says, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the wars desolations are determined. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. All right? This 1 week has taken place. It's going into the 66 AD Jewish-Roman war until what? 73 AD. It says, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. So under Titus, the Romans, they confirmed that covenant with many for 1 week. We got 3 main wars that took place from 66, if I'm not mistaken, AD, or what was it, CE, to 73 AD or CE. All right? And in the midst of that was 70 AD. All right? It says, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. How? By destroying the temple in 70 AD. In the middle of that week, the middle of 66 to 73 is what? 70 AD. It says, in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. This is what Yahushua was warning the people of. And we're going to read that in Matthew the 24th chapter. It says, even until the consummation, the destruction, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Let's go to Matthew 24 now and get this prophecy. This is Matthew the 24th chapter, and let's start at verse 15. Perilous times. This is Yahushua speaking in the red. If you haven't known, when you see red letters, that's Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, speaking. This is what Yahushua says. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation. What is that? The Roman soldiers coming to destroy, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, 9th chapter, the 27th verse, going really starting at the 26th. All right. It says, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, which is what? Jerusalem. Whoso readeth, let him understand. To do what? Let's find out. Verse 16. Then let them which be in Judea flee unto the mountains. We read that in the AI overview that what? Yes, it was historically plausible and accounted that Jews fled into Africa, where communities were set up. All right. And then we were later sold through the transatlantic slave trade off the west coast of Africa, where you look on the map, Negro land is. Or I believe another map is the King of Judah, something along that line map. And then we were sold what? Over here to the Americas. All right. You got Judah, the African Americans, and then you got Judah, the southern kingdom, which is comprised of what? Benjamin, Judah, and Levi. All right. Benjamin being the West Indies, you know, the so-called Jamaicans, St. Croix, all the islands, and then Levi being the who? The so-called Haitians. All right. We were all brought over here to this side, the uttermost part, where we were what? Sold into slavery for bondmen and bondwomen. And no man shall redeem thee. So how they, excuse the language, so how the hell do those people in the land over there now calling themselves, you know what, fit the curses when no man's supposed to be able to redeem you? So what the heck is that 1948 Balfour Declaration all about? It's a setup, man. Okay. is set up to deceive the very ones that's calling other ones goats. Okay? But it's not going to deceive the elect. We see right through it. We know that Daniel, the 9th chapter, the 27th verse, has already taken place in its entirety, and it has been fulfilled. Okay? We read it, Matthew 24:15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the Holy Land place. So Yahushua gave them a warning several decades before this took place. Because Yahushua was crucified in 33 AD, and this took place the beginning in 66 AD. So roughly 3 decades before Yahushua prophesied of this, completing the 70-week prophecy in Daniel the 9th chapter, the 27th verse. Okay? There will be no rapture where an antichrist come and is making a peace treaty or covenant with the state, with the modern day state of Israel, and then breaks it, and then all hell breaks loose. That's not how it goes down. That's not according to prophecy. Okay? When you have the people in the land that's supposed to be there, there won't be any more wars. I stated that earlier, but let's actually go to that precept. Isaiah 2, and let's start at 1. The word that Isaiah, the son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. That's the northern, or should I say the southern and the northern kingdom. Why is it only that who they call Jew-ish over there? What about the other tribes? Where they at? It says, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of Yahweh, that word mountain goes into power. All right, government. That the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountains. So here it is that if they claim to be the people of the book, they're supposed to be established over all the other mountains. Why do they need a peace treaty or covenant to be broken by a so-called antichrist? It says, and he shall be exalted above the hills. Wait a minute. The hills go into what? Rulership, governments, and all nations shall flow into it. Why aren't all nations flowing into that group of people that's over there in the land right now? Because they don't supposed to be there. They supposed to be there. They fulfilling that prophecy. A bastard should dwell in Ashdod, but they're not the people of the Bible. It says, and many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the power of Jacob. Ain't nobody going over there saying this. And he will teach us his ways. Wait a minute. Don't they have a rainbow parade over there every year? Who's going over there to learn how to be, you know what, an alphabet? Man, come on, man. It says, and we will walk in his paths, for out of Zion shall go forth the law. They ain't keeping the law over there. All right? If they did, they wouldn't be having that rainbow, you know what, parade every year. And the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares. Right? Because in Joel, they beat their plowshares into swords. All right? Let's just go there. Stay with me for a second. Notice it's kind of long. Let me see. Is it Joel 3? This is Joel 3 and 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. See? Wake up the mighty man. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords. What is a plowshare associated with? Agriculture. So countries like China, Russia, they were known for agriculture at one point in time, specifically China. But now through its technology catching up with America, they can rival America's technology in that field of what? Thermonuclear missiles. It says, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. All right, these are all military grade weapons that's going to be used to take down Babylon the Great, America. And what? The valley of Yahweh Shaphat, or Yahweh Judges, all right? Armageddon, World War III, which is over there in that land, which they saying they're going to sign a peace treaty. Little do they know that land is going to be decimated, okay? But unlike America, it will be built back up. Through what? Through slavery. When we come out of the ship, we take these other nations, primarily the Edomites, their noble ones, into chains, and then we're going to put them into continual employment, slavery. They're going to build up our walls again. All right? They're going to build up Jerusalem again. All right? And it's going to be against their own will. They ain't going to have no say-so in the matter. They're going to have other nations as well. All these other nations outside of Yasharallah is going into slavery when we come back down out of the chariots, the so-called UFOs. So it says, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. So once this has been fulfilled, which it hasn't, then Isaiah 2 comes into place where they take their spears and swords and reverse them back into pruning hooks because they're going into slavery. They're going to be building up the kingdom again. They're going to be building up the kingdom, shall I say. So now when we read that in Isaiah, the 2nd chapter, it makes a little bit more sense where it says, and he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords. We read that. Into plowshares in Joel 3, 8th and 9th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. And their spears, that was also in there, swords and spears. It says, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation. See, when the people of the Bible comes back to the land, there won't be any more wars. Okay? But why is there wars going on right now? Because those people in the land don't belong there in the sense that they're not the people of the book. They are the people of the book in the sense that they're the Edomites, but not the people of the book that the promises was given to. Okay? In regards to immortality, okay? Because Esau did get a blessing from our forefather Isaac, which is what? To rule with the sword. All right? And he is who would be in power when Yahushua returns to the earth, the Edomites. 2nd Ezra 6 and 9. Esau is the end of the world, or age, or eon, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. All right? And then after that 1,000-year reign of us putting these heathen nations in slavery and ruling and being and having them in subjectivity to us, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, gets destroyed completely pursuant to Obadiah 1 and 18. And the other nations, they can go back and be in their land and worship our power, Yahweh, in the name of the only begotten Son, Yahweh. And if they don't, well, guess what? Isaiah 60 tells you that. This is Isaiah 60. And if I'm not mistaken, verse 10. and the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls. See, they're going to build up the Holy Land because it's going to be destroyed amongst World War III, and they're going to have to build it back up. It says, and their king shall minister unto thee, for in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto the forces, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted. See? So if they don't serve the true and living power of Yahweh the right way, they're going to be destroyed, man. No rain. We could cut off the rain. It's going to be so many type of ways we can punish these nations, man. But we're going to break them for that first 1,000 years, man. All right. And then after that, they'll be able to go back and serve the Lord. All right. And then Esau, Edom, after that 1,000 years, will be destroyed, pursuant to Obadiah 1 and 18. So jumping back to Isaiah 2, and where we at? Verse 4, the latter part of that, it says, nation shall not lift up sword against nation. There ain't going to be no wars in the kingdom. Okay? Showing you that them people don't belong there, man. They belong there, but not in the sense that they're the people of the Bible that is received the covenant, the promises, and the glory. It says, neither shall they learn war anymore. O house of Jacob, come ye and let us walk in the light of Yahweh. See, this is a future prophecy. When we get back in the land, ain't gonna be no more wars, man. All right, ain't gonna be no more wars. Ain't gonna be no need to make a peace treaty and then have an antichrist break it in the middle of the week to fulfill the 70-week prophecy. Man, the 70-week prophecy, the 490 years has already been fulfilled completely in its entirety. All right? That's why, hey, it's best not even to go back and forth for the Christian, man. All right? They on some, hey, Christianity, this form or version of Christianity is worse than smoking rocks, man. They don't go into prophecy to understand and to see the whole picture, man. All right? They getting ready, the same Romans that Yahushua warned the Israelites of back then is getting ready to make that same play again. All right? History is going to repeat itself. They're going to use that same play. They're going to shut down cities. A famine going to come, a lack of bread. Hey, it's Masada all over again. All right? Now, I was going to go into 2 Thessalonians, 2, because I can almost assure you that dispensationalism believe that this is speaking of the Antichrist as well. But I ain't going to go into it, because the point I was going to get down to, for the mystery of iniquity doeth already work. Only he who now letteth well let, until he be taken out of the way. All right? This is speaking of Esau, Edom, the Edomites. All right? This ain't speaking of one person, the Antichrist. All right? 1 John 2 and 18 says what? Little children, it is the last time, and as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now are there many Antichrists or anti-Hamashiach, whereby we know that it is the last time. See? So you looking for one specific person when there's many anti-Hamashiachs, those that don't believe. Okay? As it tells us in 1 John, is it the 4th chapter? Where it goes into, hereby know ye the Spirit of Most High. Every spirit that confesses that Yahushua Hamashiach is come in the flesh is of the Most High. and every spirit that confesseth not that Yahweh Shah HaMashiach is come in the flesh is not of the Most High. Okay? And this is that spirit of what? Antichrist or Hamashiach or anointed one. The damn Edomites, Esau, Edom is already here, man. All right? And under his religion, specifically Catholicism, teaches that what? That who they call Jesus was born of a virgin. Okay? This damn Antichrist is already here, and there's many Antichrists, man. All right? That's why the son of perdition had to be revealed. As it says in 2 Thessalonians, is that 2 and 3? Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first. So we had to be removed out of our land. And what else? And that man of sin be revealed. And it ain't speaking of no Antichrist. It's speaking of Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed so-called white man, the Edomites. Because for the longest, they deceived the whole world. All right? But now they being revealed, and there's nothing they can do to escape that, except for just come on and bring it. All right? Bring the persecution. All right? And we know they getting ready to come with it. It says the son of perdition. Okay? Let's get one more scripture, and then we get ready to close out. Revelation 16, I believe it's 15. Or 13, Armageddon. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. All right, this is referring to the what? The beast system. All right, or you could call it, the anti-Hamashiach. All right, because why? They don't believe in the word. They reject the truth. These Edomites. This is a Edomite ran system. You got the 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, the military. The mouth of the beast is what? Or should I say the mouth of the dragon is the financial, the mouth of the beast is the military, and the mouth of the false prophet is what? The false religion that sprung from what? Roman Catholicism is what? Christianity, Islam, baptism, all these religions are all anti-Hamashiachs, all right? So you're looking for one Antichrist, and there's many Antichrists or Hamashiachs, all right? Daniel, the 70-week prophecy was fulfilled, okay? The 1 week has already took place, okay? 1 Peter 5 and 8, and let's close out. 1 Peter 5 and 8 says, be sober, be vigilant. See, understanding prophecy is a key component to your sobriety and your vigilante. All right, being vigilant, and being sober has to go a long way with understanding scriptures and historical events, okay, and prophecy. Yahweh Shai told us that, Matthew 24 and 15 and 16. Okay? That's already taken place. Ain't no dispensationalism, Antichrist coming to make an agreement with the modern day state of Israel, and then in the midst of the week, he breaks it. That ain't coming to place, man. You looking for that? You looking for something totally different, okay? And they may try to use that to deceive the mass, because they going to believe it. And then they going to usher in that microchip, the mark of the beast, and you going to take it because you ain't looking for it. All right? So be sober, be vigilant. Why? Because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. If you are Israelite and you believe this, check your temperature. All right? Check your temperature. You might not be alive. Okay? Get right before it's too late. This devil is getting ready to come with great wrath. Revelation 12:12. All right? He's getting ready to make his move because why? He knows he has but a short time. He's been revealed. There's nothing else he needs to do but just to come on and come with that wrath, man. Especially amongst this new news that this so-called white woman, this Ukrainian, was stabbed by a so-called black man. That's going to raise racial tensions even more. All right? So, hey, get right with the Lord while you still can. Repent, you Israelites, you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. Turn back from your wicked ways. Turn to the Lord, and he may have mercy on you during Jacob's trouble, leading up to the hour of temptation when they make that microchip mandatory in order for you to buy and sell. All right? Because if the Lord ain't dealing with you, you're going to take that chip. And when you take that microchip, you will be destroyed in this thermonuclear fire here in America, the lake of fire. All right? So be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. And with that being said, pray someone was edified through this lesson. And until the next time, if it be the Lord's will, stay strong, stay in the faith. We're almost home. Shalom. Peace.